You know what time it is, bro? Jubilee. We have an episode of Middle Ground. Liberal teens versus conservative parents. Yikes. All right. Let's see what we got, bro.
When you're young, you're not thinking. And everybody has made a bad choice. And because you stressed out, you go change your gender. Because you want to try something new, once you do it, you can't go back. The more you throw stuff at kids before they develop, that's indoctrination.
When Jubilee created Middle Ground, the intention was to uncover humanity and empathy shared among strangers with opposing beliefs. Whether your political beliefs are on the left or the right, we all exist within our own echo chambers. So for this episode, we partnered with Ground News and created a test that can analyze your news sources and show you their biases. The participants of this episode agreed to take the quiz and share their results.
What about Twitter trending? Because that's my news source.
If you agree with the prompt, cancel culture is a good thing.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
We have the freedom to say what you want, but everyone else has the freedom to respond and cancel you if you say something that is racist, homophobic, transphobic, etc. Cancel culture is definitely good in the means of deplatforming people who are spreading very hateful messages.
What is your opinion on Trump being canceled on Twitter?
He wasn't canceled, he was banned. That's a difference.
Twitter, whatever you check I accept the, guidelines, the community guidelines, I agree to follow them, and he didn't follow them, so Twitter has the right to take him off the app.
That is valid.
That might make the counter argument that.
See, that's the thing. A lot of people, and the problem with cancel culture is a lot of people don't realize the difference, right? There's a difference between deplatforming someone because they're saying hateful things or whatever, and then just getting on someone and completely ruining their life based off of one thing that was said when they were 20 years old or 11, since everyone's mad young, stuff like that, or jokes being taken out of hand, like Dave Chappelle, bro. That wasn't necessarily a joke. He was spitting, he was spitting. I still don't know what he said, to be honest. I haven't watched the thing yet, but it's just weird, bro. But then banning someone off of an entire, that's a whole different thing. That's stuff like that is very necessary. Trump deserved to get banned. Canceled? Not necessarily, bro. That's just one thing. He should have been canceled in the 90s. Did that happen? No. So it probably won't happen ever. But banning him off of everything makes perfect sense, bro. Perfect sense. Cancel culture is dumb, but some things that the original cancel culture made sense. I feel like cancel culture really started with the Me Too movement. The Me Too movement came out, everybody's getting canceled. You know what I mean? That made sense. That made perfect sense. But now you're trying to cancel people for saying one terrible thing that they didn't know was terrible when they were 12, like Billy. They tried to cancel Billy, bro. How that make sense? It doesn't.
Twitter is biased and will only cancel right-wing politicians. That's not true at all. Twitter and other forms of social media have canceled left-wing activists. There is an equal balance on both sides.
I feel like cancel culture is just kind of weird. It's out of hand at this point.
You brought up canceling him off Twitter. I'm sorry, I disagree. When the Taliban can use our social media, but an ex-president can't, there is something wrong with that.
But at the same time, when you look at it this way, right? The people in that organization, that group, whatever you want to call it, that are on Twitter, are they the same people doing terrible things, or are they just the social media ambassadors? What's up with that at that point? Because Rainbow Fish, the dude who wrote Rainbow Fish is not the same dude that's on the Twitter at all. He lost their verification. It's very different. He's obviously a bad representation, but who knows? Exactly. So who knows what they've done? So they're in a terrible group that shouldn't be on any social media, but at the same time, do you know that one person, that could have just been someone's kid that got roped into it because that's all they know, and that's literally, they grew up in an unfortunate circumstance, so now there's Taliban, right, and they're on Twitter. Is that the same thing? It's kind of weird. I get what he's saying, though. But it's not a good comparison at all. It's not a good comparison.
Did the Taliban violate community guidelines?
It doesn't matter.
I think it matters to Twitter what their community guidelines
Exactly.
are. That's why they banned Trump.
It's the platform. They banned Trump off of their platform because he violated community guidelines. Not because of things that he's done or things that he's, said outside of Twitter. It was things that he did on their platform. They didn't want that on their platform. He violated community guidelines, so they were like, okay, bye. That's how it is with anything. You know what I mean?
Trump violated community guidelines. That's what every platform has, whether it be TikTok, YouTube, Instagram.
The Taliban
Facts.
stones people because they're gay.
If they've done that and they've posted videos of stoning gay people, I agree.
Exactly.
They
They would
should be
get
removed, and
banned.
That is fundamentally wrong. So
Except
it's not.
the problem is they're smart enough to not do that.
Well,
then why wasn't Trump
then the
smart enough to
president
not do
wasn't
that?
smart enough to not do that, I guess.
If I'm an American and I have to vote between this person, I need equal access to both of them to decide what's right. Bro, you could be a Klansman, you could say you hate black people. That's not my job to police your language. I can't expect everybody to love me and think the way I think. All y'all think different. I mean, that's totally dope. But the fact that you want somebody removed because they think differently, that could be you one day.
Do you think freedom
I
of
mean, yeah, but at the same time, it's like thinking differently and being a hateful person are very different things that a lot of people kind of don't understand. It's like, yeah, you're entitled to your own opinions and you're entitled to, you know, thinking the way you want to think and live your life the way you want to. But when it's hateful and all that, and it's against a platform's community guidelines, then like, get them out of here, bro. Now that's not saying that like if Trump was literally out on the street holding up a sign that said I hate gay people, that means you have to remove him off the street. I mean, yeah, you kind of do it's a hate crime, but like still though, is that because that's the platform. That's the platform. The government is like, yo, we don't want people on the street saying bad things, so they're banning him off of the platform. It's the same thing, bro. It's literally the same thing.
speech is something that still exists in America?
We do have aspects of freedom of speech. Like you can't go into a movie theater and yell fire. So obviously there are limits of freedom of speech.
But they're picking and choosing who they're silencing and who they're letting talk.
If people react negatively
Okay.
to what you say, it goes both ways. You can't just say
Sure.
that, oh, they
100%.
can't. Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
America is becoming less and less safe.
I feel like it's not becoming less safe. It's just, it never really was. And so it's kind of just not getting better. You know? That's how I'd put it. It's not becoming less safe. It wasn't really to begin
So
with.
I have a lot of friends that have been in the military for the last 20 years because they refused to get vaccinated. They told me that they would be dishonorably just discharged or kicked out of the military.
Oh, yeah, I heard about
just
that.
believe We're losing a lot of good servicemen with
That's
the
kinda
current
whack.
situation that we're
We
in
shouldn't
right now.
we shouldn't be forcing people to get
Police officers
vaccinated. It's
are
weird.
down. Crime is up all over. When police aren't there, we're murdering each other at a really high rate. Police are in those neighborhoods because the homicide rate is high. Y'all can run around talking about police all you want, but I challenge any of these liberal kids to spend 2 weeks in the environment I grew up in, and I promise your perspective will change.
The one advantage we have about being older, we've been through a threat or two. And our enemies, you know, like China, the Communist Party in China, they're laughing at us. You know, Russia's like, we don't need to do much. They're gonna screw it up on their own. We need to get the help of our younger people that haven't been through a threat before to realize a lot of what's going on is not good. My name is Mike, I'm 59 years old, and I'm a conservative parent. You know, growing up during the 1980s, you know, that was a huge influence on me, and it formed my views, and the people that I was around is the reason why I'm a conservative parent. I think America should be more middle of the road and not be necessarily more liberal, and if anything, it should be a hint more on the conservative side, because we're gonna watch our freedoms get extinguished or encroached if we don't guard those freedoms and make sure that all of our children have a chance to succeed.
Can the disagreeer step forward?
I actually wished I came up here for the agreeing section because I think I interpreted the definition of safety the same way that you guys did, but after hearing your guys' conversation, I started thinking about how our American people aren't safe in the face of like imminent like climate disasters that are coming our way, and how we don't have the infrastructure to deal with that.
I actually very much agree with that, because I think we need to define like kind of like what we mean by like we're less safe now. Do we mean like there's more homicides after COVID, or like what do we mean?
I would say before we got rid of half our military, half our police force, you know, slavery was legal, the Holocaust was legal. So we can look at all of these mass atrocities and say we're doing what's right. Everybody who was a part of the Holocaust government, they were doing what Hitler said. They were doing what was right. So everybody losing their job for not getting vaxxed, and all the vax people, you got who can we control? Everybody who get the shot, that's who gonna do what we say. The enemies are coming, and we don't care about that because we wanna care about what color we should wear and pride and critical race theory. It's like, no one else cares about that but us in America. That's our problem.
So you think that talking about sexual orientation and all that kind of stuff takes away from the safety of our country?
Who you sleep with has no merit in the real world. What does it matter?
Okay, let's just broaden the scope. With the coronavirus pandemic, why did it take weeks for us as a country to mobilize together to fight the public health crisis that was already affecting the nation?
It was a scam to get Donald Trump out of office. It's all fake. It's my opinion.
I agree with you.
I don't think that we could create, or the Democrats could create some international plan, getting all of these scientific communities outside of just the US and even international governments on their side for something that they're just trying to get Trump out of office. I feel like that's
seriously,
ridiculous.
bro.
Trump
That makes no sense.
was the thorn that nobody saw coming, and they had to find a way to get him out of there. If there's no mail-in voting, 100% Trump is the president right now, 100%.
Yeah, because overwhelmingly mail-in ballots were to Biden, and that's obvious. Like,
Exactly.
It's not because mail-in ballots are fraudulent, because mail-in ballots are actually not fraudulent at all. That this election was the safest election in recorded history.
There's a lot of videos, so you see people with fake ballots, so that's here and there. I'm not about to
That's just
argue with it.
hearsay from random people on TikTok. Are we really gonna take that as
Seriously,
empirical
though.
evidence?
It's a personal opinion.
Yikes, man.
My name is Parker, I'm 19, and I'm a liberal. My sisters and I have become a lot more liberal, a lot more left-leaning over
He looks like he could play Spider-Man. Just saying.
time, while my parents have stayed a bit conservative. Before, when I was a conservative, I kind of just went off a lot of the indoctrination and propaganda that was spread to me when I was a kid. I grew up on the fact that, oh, we shouldn't have increased taxes because taxes are just negatively affecting us. Personal responsibility isn't what a lot of the decisions people make in society is based on. It's mainly based upon their environments, how they're socialized by their parents, people around them, things like that.
My news
Valid.
source is more reliable than the other side's.
I feel like no one's news source is really that reliable.
When I look at
Everyone's
conservative
biased.
news, I see a lot of conspiracies that I don't necessarily agree with. And so if everything comes from
That's
opinion
pretty
and just
valid, though.
people developing their own ideas, it just doesn't seem reliable to me.
I feel like the only way we can get unbiased news is in order for news media organizations to stop prioritizing having really vivid headlines that might not necessarily be 100% accurate.
I think that starts with putting people over profit. They want the biggest story or whatever, and they don't want to actually
Yeah.
give the news that would be beneficial to our everyday average Americans. And I think that if we put a lot more focus on putting people first instead of the big news or the big story, we can change that aspect of society.
I feel like a great example of this, especially with the news thing, is literally the movie Don't Look Up that just dropped. Like, bro, everything that went on in that movie, politics-wise, was beyond accurate and kind of terrifying because it is that accurate to the point where I feel like it could go down exactly like that. Like, exactly like it, bro. On some Simpsons predictions type vibes, bro. No
I agree
cap.
with you 100%. Like, I say the civil rights movement is the civil rights entertainment industry because it's so profitable. Put a police shooting on TV, it's breaking news. Every headline is on every social media. You're selling shirts, you're selling signs. That's so much more profitable than showing me and you shaking hands. The news media is literally capitalizing off the emotions of society. No matter how you feel about it, handle it in your privacy of your house. Why? Because if you can do it on camera, somebody's gonna make $1 off of it, and that's not fair to you.
Young people today are too sensitive.
Some for sure. Some for sure. About certain things. I feel like saying young people today are too sensitive is kind of broad, and it's just like a weird way to look at it. But in some ways, a lot of people definitely do care way too much about things that don't necessarily matter. But at the same time, a lot of older people view things that the younger generation cares about as things that don't matter, and so they think they're too sensitive. That's why you have people like Greta, you know, at the UN talking about, you know, the climate crisis, and old people are probably like, you know, she's too sensitive, whatever. Or, you know.
I think it's
But in
a
some
good
ways,
thing
yes.
that young people are sensitive.
In some
I
ways.
think today they can be more sensitive than what they probably could have been 30 or 40 years ago. You know, the growing up was the Berlin crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis. I mean, we had the threat of annihilation, you know, staring at us several times. And a lot of times I go, you know, thank God John Kennedy handled it.
The country has been spoiled for so long. They're trying to make it so a man can't be a man. And if you don't let men be men, then things start crumbling, society crumbles,
What does that mean,
families
though?
crumble, and broken homes start happening.
And kids need their fathers. So 36% of kids don't have a father. So every boy is, well, my mom is mad at me, my dad don't love me, my dad don't care about me. Maybe I should be gay, maybe I should be trans, I don't know who I am. And your father puts confidence in you.
That's
No
a weird way to
disrespect
look at it,
anybody,
bro.
But the younger generation of men are soft. And if we had to go to war, they're not protecting America. There's no better place to be as a
I feel like if you look at it that way, it's like, why should we protect America? If it's such a place where it's like everybody's soft or everybody's, you know, so like what's like the driving force? Because if we're in a situation like, you know, there needs to be a draft where it's like World War III, whatever, right? Some country is mad at us and they're coming at us, whatever. We got to go over there. They're coming over here and we got to protect ourselves and each other. What's really going to stop most people from being like, you know what? It is what it is. You know, like, because years ago, a lot of people had the mentality, and not because their fathers were around, because a lot of them weren't. If you look at stats from a long time ago, it's probably higher than 36%, right? But a lot of them were looking at it like, yo, I want to start a family. I want to do these things, whatever. So I'm going to go fight for my country. This way I can come back and live my life the way I want to. Whereas now we're already trying to live our lives the way we want to. A lot of people, especially Gen Z, don't want to have kids. So it's like that doesn't really matter. So what would be the, you know, like what's the driving force? What's the point of something like that? What does that mean? And even still, why is that like the automatic go-to thought? It's like we're kind of trying to provoke someone into then starting a war. This way, there's a reason to have a draft and send people to war. And at the same time, you know, yeah, the military is a little bit weird. They kind of do set standards a little bit lower for women. But at the same time, it's not like it's only men at war anymore. It's not. It's a lot of different people going to war to fight, bro. So, like, that's kind of a weird statement. And he said something else that I want to talk about, but
as a
I
black
can't remember. I'm gonna keep it
individual
going.
or whatever you are in America. Go to the Middle East right now and say you gay or you trans and see how they treat you. Johnny, I'm 32 years old and I am a conservative parent. My grandfather was a no excuse individual. He grew up in the Jim Crow South, but he worked hard. The house that he bought is still in our family today. He had a garden in his backyard. If you step past a certain line, he got on you. So to watch the men before me who really could have been lynched for stepping out of line, who really could have went through a hardship for not doing what society said, the worst thing that can happen to me is I get a mean tweet or a dislike. So I gotta fully embrace who I am, and I know I can create anything with my 2 hands and feet.
I'm Hannah, I'm 17, and I'm a liberal. I really want equality for all, and the liberal policies that have been passed side more with my values of equality for those who are on the LGBTQ, those who are on the gender spectrum. Something about conservative parents that I don't like is whenever I come across them, they seem to be very rooted in their ways and not willing to listen to someone who's a teenager like me.
That is very true.
More like, oh,
that is very
because I'm
true.
older, I have more knowledge, which is not necessarily always the case.
Can we have the
I feel like a lot of people, and that's why it's kind of like so one-sided, is a lot of people on both sides aren't willing to listen to the other side. It's not just conservatives. It's mostly conservatives that you see doing that, but there's definitely a lot that are willing to listen. But there's also a lot of liberals that are not trying to hear the other side, which is the biggest problem. If we have 2 disagreeing sides, bro, and nobody on either side is trying to listen, then guess what? The problem isn't solved, bro. But even stuff like this, conservative parents and liberal teens getting together to, you know, talk about certain things and hear each other out, or maybe not, that's a good step because at least they're trying to listen. You know what I mean? That's a big problem. And that's why, you know, you have people on the news talking about conservative teens, whatever, just because of certain examples of people not trying to hear the other side.
Rhea, step forward.
It works on both sides.
This idea that because men are being raised by women that they're weaker is,
It's
in
mad
my
weird,
opinion,
bro.
completely false.
It's mad weird. And it's misogynistic, I ain't gonna lie.
It's not more sensitive.
mad
We're
weird.
more aware of all these things. Being transgender and gay is not something that should be ashamed of.
Yo, cameraman crazy for that, bro. I was gonna say it before, but I was like, this is a serious video. I'm not gonna do like the meme thing. But like, cameraman crazy for that,
feel
bro.
less in today's society. That is why women are fighting for equality, because this idea that because they only have a mom, they're weaker, or because, you know, they're more sensitive, that's, in my opinion, completely false.
Seriously,
And I
bro.
would say in the environment that I grew up in, the teen pregnancies come from girls without fathers. The homicides come from people without fathers. Every girl that I know, if they grow up with a daddy, they get married before they have a kid.
Why do they not have fathers?
If you want me to be real, because a lot of women make bad choices on the men they procreate with. If you make a bad choice, that's your responsibility. Every bad thing that I did in my life, it was when my daddy was in jail. When my dad was out and I had my dad's reassurance, I was a better person.
I had one daughter.
So I feel like in his situation, it's kind of like he has probably done things that he doesn't agree with since he's grown and matured more. And so he puts that on his father not being around those times when he was doing things that he doesn't agree with now, instead of realizing that he was just being immature and in a terrible situation regardless of who was around, and made bad decisions, may have ended up getting him in more difficult situations. I don't know what happened, you know what I mean? But since then he's grown and matured and realized that, like, yo, that wasn't right, but he's putting the blame on someone else other than himself and his environment. You know what I mean? That's what this seems like. Because at the end of the day, you can look at a lot of families in certain areas or a lot of people in certain areas based off of two things: their level of maturity and what's going on around them. Because there's plenty of people in terrible, hostile situations where they have, you know, two parents, a few siblings, you know, upper middle class, kind of, not really, but, you know, doing better than some people, not necessarily wondering where every single meal is going to come from, right? And they're still outside doing crazy things. Guess what? They're immature. They don't know what's really right and what's not, or they do and they just don't care because they're a kid and they think they're invincible. Whatever. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's kind of weird. I get it though, because that's how he views it.
They had to move across the country to get rid of
that's speculation too. I don't know.
Relationship with
that's what I see.
That was harming them.
Why does the woman have to move across the country because the man is being toxic? Why can't the man be taught, don't be toxic?
Oh, I agree.
Women nowadays have to deal with those kinds of relationships. The mother knows better, I would say, than the father about that.
We're not more sensitive, there's just more opportunities for us to be sensitive. You can say like
exactly.
15, 20 years ago, there weren't videos of black men being shot by police all over the internet. Now that that's there, people are more inclined to feel a certain way or take a stance on that topic.
Do you think it would be more beneficial to show police also interacting with white guys? Because more white guys get killed than black guys by cops.
If you look at the amount of white people and the amount of black people, there are going to be more white people killed because there are more white people in America. The percentage of black people that are being killed is higher than the percentage of.
And see, the thing is, a lot of people like to argue this, but it's not just about being killed by police. It's about being innocently killed by police. Because if you look at some of the white people that are getting killed and some of the black people that are getting killed, some of them are probably not all that innocent. Some of them are probably doing certain things that got them in a situation where there's a bunch of police outside and they're waving a gun around or they're waving a knife around. Or they have some, you know, like certain situations like that. And that's why, you know, but at the same time, when you look at innocent people that are getting killed by police, it's way more people of color, not just black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, whatever. You know what I mean? But there's also way more white people in America. So there's a few for sure, because there's just more people that are white in America. That's how it works, bro. That's literally how it works.
Well, just because you're pulled over doesn't mean you have to resist. I mean, they don't just kill you when they pull you over. It's all about based on how you perform as an individual. I've been pulled over and never had a bad interaction in my life. When I was rude, I got snatched out the car. Everything is a personal choice. If you can't take accountability for your life, then you will forever be a slave.
That's not true. There are definitely issues on the side of policing. Black communities, majority POC communities are over-policed. There's
that too, and guess what? There's a lot of cops that are just trigger happy, whether you're being rude or not. You know how many people on camera, off camera have been pulled over and have been as compliant as they possibly could be with a police officer, and they still shot them or still harmed them in some way? Guess what? Because they felt like it and because they could. They had that power over them. They have a gun and a badge and they think they're Thanos, bro. That's a big problem right there. Yeah, sure, there's definitely some people that provoke cops and get themselves in situations where it could have gone a certain way, you know, better or worse, whatever. But at the same time, it's still up to the police officer who's there to protect and serve to de-escalate the situation and make sure everybody's safe at the same time, instead of shooting and killing someone because they didn't like how they talked to them. That's kind of weird, bro.
Patrols in black communities.
That's kind of weird to me, bro.
Police work longer hours in majority black communities, so there's an issue from the policing side as well.
Politics has damaged my relationship with a loved one.
That can happen all the time. I feel like that's definitely happened.
I'm sure you could relate to this as well, but in the Asian community, there's a lot of anti-Blackness. So with the advent of the Black Lives Matter movement this past year, having conversations with my parents was really difficult, especially around the nuances of racial justice and sort of like what the movement was fighting for and how to articulate that in like the very closed mindset that my parents had.
A lot of my family voted for Trump in the past election, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I don't like to say this, but it made me view their morals a little bit differently, and they're willing to adapt and change was so different, and I was just like shocked because I wanted to understand their side and really talk about it, and I was met with, you're wrong, and we don't want to talk about it, and that kind of
That's weird, bro. A lot of people close-minded and ain't trying to hear it.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
It's
and I
whack.
also think that it just made me less willing to expend the energy to have political or like just like any like hard conversations with my parents or anyone else in my family. My name is Rithwick, I'm 18 years old, and I'm a liberal. I grew up in a low-income immigrant household, and I think the systems that are in place right now aren't sufficient enough to support people, Americans like myself or my family. Because my parents were immigrants, I think they were liberal on issues like immigration and things that directly affected them. I'd like to ask to the conservative parents why they don't necessarily listen or adopt their own beliefs, whether political or social, based on the conversations they have with their children and why they're so set in their ways.
Bro, that is kind of weird to me.
You know, I read a lot of the tragic stories where family members don't talk to each other anymore. Personally, I think that's sad. Do all my family members vote the same? No. Do we have a pretty good idea of how family members may have voted? Yeah. But we went more of agree to disagree. I'm not going to not buy you a present for Christmas because you decided to vote for somebody that I don't like. Give me a break. Families are special. And we've got too many people, as you've talked about, that don't have them.
When I took this prompt, I kind of took it more of like my view of the person changed differently because, not because of the way they voted, but because some of their values to me were, like you said, moral values, and that shows kind of part of their characters.
Would you say that morality is subjective to each individual person though? Or would you say morals are the same across the board?
The basic is human equality for all.
I feel like morals they do vary person to person, but at the same time, as a human race, we should have similar morals, just like how animals do, right? If you look at the situation that's going on, wherever it's going on, I think Malaysia, you know what I mean? A baby monkey was murdered by some dog or some dogs or whatever happened. And guess what? All of the monkeys in the area have been brutally murdering dogs because guess what? They did something that was morally wrong to them, and they're trying to be like, yo, this ain't it. This is how we're going to handle it. And so they're doing that, or they did that. I don't know if they're done. I don't know what's going on. I haven't heard about this in like 2 weeks, right? So it should be the same way, bro, with humans. Like, if something's going on with a human that's not right, we should all agree and be like, yo, they bleed like me. They breathe like me. Something was done wrong. That could have been me. You know what I mean? So we got to figure this out and, do what's right. That's how it should be. It's not saying that like, oh, you know what I mean? In his case, you should, love and respect all gay people or all trans, whatever. You know what I mean? Which they're humans at the end of the day. So like, I don't see why not. But a lot of people just don't agree with it. And you know what? So be it, bro. At this point, you really can't beat it into their head, bro. You really can't, because that's how they view it, right? But at the same time, if someone that's gay or trans is murdered, it's not like, that's any less bad, bro. They were murdered, bro. That's a bad thing. You know what I mean? It should be the same reaction, whether they're gay, whether they're conservative, whether they're whatever. You know what I mean? I feel like that's what it's like.
If you don't believe that somebody should have an equality based on their gender, their sexual orientation, or their race, or anything like that, that's a moral problem in my eyes.
That's a huge thing with the trans and the gay and the LGBTQ and all that whole thing. So I grew up LDS, being Utah County, it's like 95% Mormon. At 8 years old is when you get baptized. And so if you're raised around where 95% of people think the exact same way, I feel like that's too young of an age where you're a child and you don't really know what you're doing. And so where I have a problem with, the trans or these different things is they're getting kids at like 10, 12 years old and they're pushing them down that path.
Who's they?
Who is they?
Who's indoctrinating these kids into becoming?
See, a lot of people love talking about like the gay agenda, the transgender, but like, bro, who's really like behind all this? Because a lot of people love to put the blame on a giant group or whatever, but it's like, who's really to blame here? Because even if you look at it, 40 years ago, 400 years ago, 4,000 years ago, 40 million years ago, the same stuff was going on. And guess what? There was no they pushing anything. It's the same way it is now, bro. People just are like,
there's a lot of groups out there.
This ain't it.
I've just heard that there's groups out there. I don't know. You don't think there's groups out there that do that?
No.
I'm assuming you're a straight man, so I think it's weird for you to comment on the queer experience and what that's like for someone growing up who's struggling with those experiences. The way you're describing it as indoctrination, people who are figuring out their sexualities and their queer identities aren't necessarily going to ascribe to the first labels that are put before them.
If I'm not mistaken, the brain isn't fully developed until you're 25 years old, correct?
Yeah, correct.
So I know how I used to think at 16, man. I know how I used to think at 21. Man, I'm not against kids doing whatever they want. It's just the older you get, you change. I got my first tattoo at 15. I'm covered now. If I was a little older, I probably would have waited. When you're young, you're not thinking. And everybody has made a bad choice. And because you stressed out, you go change your gender. Because you want to try something new, once you do it, you can't go back.
Under that logic, it's kind of weird though, because it's like, yeah, your brain isn't fully developed till you're 25, but you're conscious when you're like, what? Most people, 1, 2, some kids 3, whatever. You get your consciousness in like Walgreens and you realize that like, yo, I'm a human being. I do certain things, whatever. And then you realize that like, yo, you have thoughts and you have experiences and stuff like that. That doesn't mean that it's any less significant because we all have consciousness. There's some people that don't, I think, probably, I don't know. They probably do, and we just don't know because science ain't there yet. Science has said a lot of weird stuff in the past, so who knows? But at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, you're not fully developed. Yeah, you can make a mistake. There's a lot of people who have regretted, doing certain things or undergoing certain, processes, whatever. But, it's like everybody's conscious. And in this day and age, a lot of, especially Gen Z, are more aware of things and, kind of don't just do things off of, an impulse. There's some people that do certain things off impulse. There's a lot of people that, but it's minor things. A lot of people, go through a bad experience and they dye their hair or, something stupid like that. But, big things like getting, changing your gender, undergoing whatever, hormone therapy, stuff like that. It's like, there's a lot of things that lead up to that. It's not just like I'm a man, not a woman. Boom, we taking testosterone same day. That's not how it works. And a lot of people believe that's how it works because they don't see the process, because they don't put energy into learning about what's really going on. They just see what Fox News is telling them. Oh my God, they're brainwashing our children. Oh, whatever. So it's kind of weird, bro.
The more you throw stuff at kids before they develop, that's indoctrination because you're trying to get them while they're not fully cognitive to know what's going on.
And at the same time, we can do it the opposite way. Now that I think about it, when all right, let's put it this way, right? You're having a kid, right? Baby shower, or before that, you know what I mean? Because a lot of people are doing this now. Gender reveal party. You having a boy, right? Then the baby shower comes around. Guess what's happening, right? Everybody's getting baby toys and things for the baby, right? You said you're getting a boy. Guess what they're gonna do? They're gonna get a bunch of G.I. Joe action figures and a bunch of little cars and a bunch of clothes with animals on them and cool stuff. You having a girl, they gonna get stuff with princesses and they gonna get all this stuff. That's not the same thing. That's not the same thing because you're kind of pushing that. There's, how many girls I knew growing up and now that have never been into any of that. They're not gay, they're not trans. They're just not vibing with that because that's not their thing. They would much rather work on a car or play video games than dress up dolls while they have tea parties. You know what I mean? It's kind of the same thing if you look at it that way. It really is in my head. And a lot of people don't think about it that way.
The more conservative you become.
I don't know.
When I got older and I had kids, I had a family, I actually started reading policies. Everything about me changed when I became a father because I had a reason to. And I'm sure you would agree with that.
Yeah. As I've gotten older and the environment we're in right now, I feel like they're trying to cancel the Constitution. They're trying to cancel Christianity.
I mean, most teenagers are liberal. I was liberal when I was teen. It's fun. Culture is liberal. So when you're younger, you're going to be a part of culture.
Right.
When you're older, you're trying to raise your family. You don't have a time to care about what LeBron James said or who did that. Just when you mature, you value what's around you.
I feel like at the end of the day, it's kind of also about, like he said, the culture, but even still in conservative culture, because that's the thing, it's kind of like what he said. He got older and, you know, had kids and raised a family, started a family and all that, and that's when he decided to change. Since when, you know, is it like everybody's, you know, doing that? Kind of forever, right? A lot of people are, you know, you grow up, you go to school, you get a degree, you get a job, you have a kid, you get married, you have a kid, you start a family, whatever, that's life, right? A lot of people now, especially liberals, but not even especially liberals, especially younger people, are kind of like, that's not really it. That's not what I'm trying to do. So at that point, it's not really the older you get, the more conservative you become. It's, you know, what culture you follow. Really, and I feel like that's what Mike is going to say, because, you know, he probably grew up semi-conservative and just had those beliefs since he was younger, whatever, and just that's what he believes in. That's what he rocks with, you know? That probably didn't change at all when he got older. I don't know.
My name's Sean. I'm 36 years old, and I'm a conservative parent. My dad's kind of my idol. I've seen him basically build a very successful life and seen how simple he's lived his life, through prayer and through just basic conservative principles. Being raised up LDS or Mormon, I saw a lot of just judgment, and so I don't necessarily believe that, you know, you have to be in a religion, but I do believe in prayer. I've been all across the board as far as the way my life has gone, and at my happiest times, I've lived by conservative values.
And I respect that. Something he did say, though, is, you know, his dad is idle and he lives a very simple life. A lot of people don't want that. A lot of people aren't trying to, you know, kind of do the same, you know, things all the time and, you know, do their honest work, whatever they're doing. You know, a lot of people kind of want to challenge themselves or want to push themselves to do things and see more and experience more and live life in a crazier way, because a lot of people now see it's possible. You know what I mean? Years ago, probably when his dad was growing up, when he was growing up, that wasn't necessarily, you know, like a thing that was so easily attainable to see. Not necessarily, not even easily attainable to do, but just to see, you know what I mean? The culture wasn't really around that at all. So I feel like a lot of people aren't really vibing with that. And that's why you see a lot of teens that aren't very conservative, because it's like, you know, that's just not what people are trying to do.
You're saying about like teenagers, we're a different generation, and so we view the world differently, and I think that's probably why you've seen more teenagers be liberal, because we just view the world that way, but I don't think it has anything to do with
No, my generation, I was liberal too when I was a teenager, and all my friends were too. And when you're a teenager, life is fun. It's just totally, you kick it, you party. So that's what I'm saying. I get the teenage. As you grow, you either can run away from responsibility or embrace responsibility. When there's real things going on, you start looking at life a little different. Versus when I was young, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about corporate gains tax, and I didn't know about my stock account, and I didn't know that I can, all these things that I didn't know when I was a kid.
So when people are generally talking about taxing the rich more, they're talking about the top 400 billionaires that are literally paying a lower effective tax rate in taxes than the middle class. The top 400 billionaires paying an effective tax rate of 8%, that's obviously not a fair share. And I think obviously everyone can agree here that they should be paying at least a fair share, right?
How do you increase taxes on someone's assets though? Most of those billionaires aren't.
Unrealized capital gains is how they're specifically trying to do it now, but it would be through long-term capital gains, because a lot of the people who are paying those taxes, they're paying capital gains tax rate. There's also tax loopholes that have been lobbied into Congress by big corporations and big businesses lobbying politicians to get whatever they want.
So if you get older and you work yourself off and you become a multimillionaire, you deserve to pay more because other people didn't work as hard as you?
But it's not because other people didn't work as hard as me, it's because we, as a society, want to give everyone access to things like basic necessities like healthcare, education, have everyone have an equal opportunity. We don't have that right now.
You can have equal opportunity of a baseline, but the outcome would still be different because every individual is going to work different levels,
well,
correct?
Obviously, yeah.
Right, so I think that's where we are as a society. I was able to pull it off. I graduated high school with a 1.9 GPA. I don't have a college degree. So the only limits are the limits you place on yourself. That's just my perspective.
America is the best country in the world.
I feel like there's really no country that's the best country in the world. Everyone has their own problems.
All of our challenges and problems, when you look at all the other countries of the world, Everybody is still trying to come here.
The way I can talk out loud, the way I can feel myself, the way I can express myself fully as an individual. It ain't many places black men can go do that outside of America.
3 years ago, when I got into the court systems and the different rights taken away from me and government control and government power. And so when you have that stuff stripped away from you and you realize most other countries don't have the freedom that America has. America has been the greatest country ever, and I think it will continue because of a lot of good people that stand up for the right things.
I think I would like to ask the question, what is America the best at?
I think we just was talking about the freedoms that we have here versus what they don't have in other countries.
So what about places in Scandinavia that actually have higher amounts of freedom? They have better democracies than we do here, higher quality of life, higher median income. They have healthcare systems that are more efficient, that take care of everyone in their population, more access to education.
But when you look at the big picture, everybody wants to come here. Millions of people are not trying to get into Scandinavia.
Why?
Because we have more opportunity than any other place in the world.
We don't even.
I feel like it's because they don't know. Because, like, even all the stuff he just said, I ain't never heard about that. Guess what? They don't promote that stuff here, bro. They don't promote that. It's just everybody wants to come here because it's so cool. Oh, my God. You can say whatever you want. You can wear whatever. You can work however, wherever for, $9 an hour. Minimum wage. Boom. We're amazing. They don't promote stuff like that. So I feel like that's why a lot of people kind of view it as the best country in the world, because they just don't get, kind of educated as much on what everyone else is doing exactly. You know what I mean? Because I feel like if we knew and other people knew exactly what everyone else was doing, if it was real, if the playing field was real level, bro, not everybody would be coming here. A lot of people would be staying where they're at or going somewhere else. Because the same way a lot of people are coming here, a lot of people are leaving here, bro. A lot of people are leaving here. Me personally, the second I get the opportunity, I'm out, bro. I'm out. Because this ain't it for me. And maybe, first world problems. I was born here. I'm a little bit spoiled maybe because this is all I know, right? But at the same time, like, I have seen a lot of other countries because I know what some other countries are doing. And I'm like, yo, that's also terrible. I don't understand why those people are trying to come here. It's maybe the lesser of two evils, but it's still not the best. That's for sure.
And women equality.
But we have a better opportunity to do something about it compared to other countries. And I would love it for Europe to open their borders the way we have and see if you can get people from other parts of the world to do mass migration to Europe.
I was going to mention Scandinavian countries as well, but I think it's also important to address that Scandinavian countries are very homogenous, racially, socioeconomically. They don't face the same geographic diversity that we have. What you were mentioning with the fact that we have the opportunity to write with women inequality, why is that not happening? It's because the way our democracy is set up, our Congress is literally in a gridlock right now, as it has been for so many past sessions of Congress. We aren't getting anything productive done.
The opportunity we have here is incredible, and I'm very happy that I live here and not somewhere else, but we are so focused on, America is the best, that we don't look at these other countries and say, why are all those people so happy, and what is that, and how can we incorporate that into our society?
I would say, I think diversity is good. I think diversity of thought and diversity of pain it's super helpful. It's really easy to get clogged up into this groupthink. So I don't expect anyone else to agree with me or feel the way I feel. I just expect you to respect my right to feel this way. I respect your right to feel this way, and we keep it moving.
100% agree. I couldn't agree more.
That was the whole point of this episode,
That's
bro.
a wrap.
High key. That was the whole point of this episode. That was fire. I'm not gonna lie. That was fire. That was a good episode. I ain't gonna lie, bro. A lot of points, man. I'm not gonna say a lot of good points, a lot of bad points, a lot of points, bro. A lot of people were bringing things to attention. This was an interesting episode, especially after the rich versus poor one. That was a good follow. Shout out to Jubilee, bro. They know what they're doing. They really know. They really know what they're doing. I didn't mean to do that.